And we're back, and I have Renee, Gonzalez with me, and we are going to talk about the role of fashion buying. Welcome, Renee. Happy Friday to you. And
Happy Friday.
I need to remind myself, Happy Women's Month to you.
Yes, same to you, Carla. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to jump into another Fashion Forward Friday conversation. We're going to have a career talk. When I first had a conversation with Renee about this, she told me, she said, fashion buying is the best kept secret in fashion. And I was like, what? She started talking to me and I thought, oh, okay. So we're going to get into that. Not right away, but in a little while, we're going to get into that. So
Absolutely.
Renee, I always like to start, there's a book about starting with why. Why should people consider getting into the role of a fashion buyer? And why did you consider getting into the role of a fashion buyer?
So for me, the role of a fashion buyer, it interests me because I was able to blend business in with my love for fashion. So that was really initially why I think I developed a passion. At a very young age, my father was he had one of the first food trucks in New York. So I always, at an early age, watched him, the hustle and bustle of running a business of his own. And I think that being a fashion buyer gives you the opportunity to be able to run a business within a corporation, within a business. So you have that comfort level of, all of the responsibility is not necessarily on you, but you still have the opportunity to have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I think that was part of the reason that I was drawn to doing this.
That's good. You had an experience that so few of us are able to see. So that is very good. And you're with TJX.
Yes.
So talk about like the type of buying that you do when it comes to apparel.
So when it comes to my market, I'm in what they call the off-price market. So TJ Maxx, Ross, Marshalls, retailers in that entity are considered off-price, which means we buy opportunistically. So opposed to where a department store buyer would be going in, buying very, very far out, doing a lot of product development, your off-price buyer really is there as almost like a bottom feeder to pick up other people's mistakes. So we like to say we buy other people's markdowns. So that could be overruns of department store buys that they may have canceled, made too much of. All of that becomes opportunity for us to buy things at a better cost, which is why when you go into a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls, you see these great values. It's not necessarily that these items are that they're counterfeit or they're, one-offs or irregulars. It's normally just stuff that has been put into production that's been canceled overseas or, things that we're going in and buying opportunistically. So.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, just thinking about the conversation we had. I have to do at some point a panel discussion with the different areas of buying, just to bring each of you together to compare and contrast. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, this is incredible, and I want to tell people when we talked fashion and merchandising with Miss King, Waquasia King Thomas the other day, we talked about that big box she buys for Macy's. So I encourage you, if you have the replays, definitely listen to that session and then listen to this session with Renee so you can hear, some of the differences. What is the typical day like for you buying?
So that's the fun thing is that no day is the same. I would say out of a buyer's week, the only day that's the same is a Monday. And even, you can have things thrown into that mix that make it different. But typically on a Monday, what I would start out with is all of my analysis. So the first thing I do is go in and look at my item report, and it shows me by SKU, my selling. Each SKU is broken out into a classification. And then you kind of use the way that classification sold as a barometer of if an item is good or bad. So that's really the first thing I do is I go in and I look at like what was my performance. And that's another thing that's like really exciting is that you get a report card every week. You never have to be, will be wondering about how you're doing. Like you get that information on a weekly basis. So it's like a constant gratification of what your work, like your work coming to fruition. So I'll go through my selling. I also look
So
at
so
company numbers.
when you say report card, your
Mhm.
report card, if I'm understanding correctly, is how well the product that you've selected has sold. Is that
Yes. Yes.
okay?
And that can be gauged by what we call stock to sales. So how fast does that stock go out of your stores? Like how fast does it turn, right? And you use that to gauge how quickly you're going to need to fill back into that inventory. So it's all, a mathematical equation that, keeps you feeding the stores with the right product.
Okay. And a typical week, what does a typical week look like for you?
So after I identify my selling and I figure out, who's working for me, what items I need to be reordering into, those are the people that I will reach out to on a Monday afternoon and set up appointments for the week. Um, my appointments really are dictated by the needs of my business. So
Mm.
if something is outperforming, obviously you're going to need to buy into it or feed back into that selling. So it's really Tuesday through, I would say, Thursday. It's hit the ground running, trying to find those opportunities and reaching out to your vendor community to see what they have. And another big part of it is relationships. So of course you have this large volume that you're buying for. You can't always be the one to initiate the conversations. So having that relationship with your vendor helps you to make sure that you're getting that first call, and that if there's merchandise out there, that they know to let you know about it. They know to call you because they have a relationship with you. They want to do well. So that has a big part of it, as well, is relationship building and making sure that your vendor community knows what you need, and how to fulfill your needs.
Hmm. And when you say outperforming, you mean it's selling over what you anticipated. Is that the
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a plus. Now, are you
Absolutely.
in your role, how many stores are you stocking for? Is it just local or is it
So
regional?
I so TJ's is a global corporation.
Right.
It actually is, I think, a top 80 company, and so therefore we buy globally. So I work out of the New York buying office, but I have the opportunity to buy for our chain out of Canada, which is the TJ Maxx of Canada, is called Winners, and then we have a Marshalls banner, which is called Marshalls, but in Canada. So I buy for both simultaneously.
Wow.
So between the two of them, it's about $500.
And what is the process for you to go in to select the items that you want to buy?
So the process is really, like I said, initiating the conversation with your vendor community and then setting up your appointments for the week. So I'll call a vendor and, their product may be selling well for me. And I'll say, let me see you on a Tuesday. You go up to the showroom. When you enter a showroom, you see basically what that vendor has for the next few seasons, what they're currently selling, what they have coming in. So it's always, starts out with a performance conversation. I like to always tell
Uh,
my vendors how they're doing, because that always leads into a conversation of how we can be better, how we can do more. And a lot of times from those conversations comes opportunity. Like you can be speaking to someone about, needing a specific product category, and they might say, oh, hey, I have X amount in a warehouse that I need to get rid of. It's already in Canada for you. Like you can take X. So it's all, that type of communication that can help you, find the deals that you're looking for.
And since you're really, I'm paraphrasing and using my short term. So if I make it incorrect, please forgive me. But if I'm understanding, you're buying for product that has already been produced and it hasn't been sold or situations like that. So do you operate on a seasonal basis? And what are like your peak seasons and the off seasons for you?
hmm So my particular category that I buy is tech and gift. So part of my category is what they consider in retail queue line. So that's the area in the store that wraps around the cash register. It's actually one of the best areas of the store to have because it's all impulsive, it's all quick items, and as people are standing online, they tend to grab things. So that is my particular category. With that being said, in my area, it's more what we would say is hand to mouth. Like I'm buying today to ship tomorrow. With the exception of my gifting area, that is more of a looking ahead. So this past, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, I've been writing Q4 product, which is considered holiday. Um, and you know, it's we're looking ahead. So basically taking our learnings from this past season, and we have to give commitments for the factories so that when they open up after Chinese New Year, that they'll have the buyers' commitments to start their production lines to
Mhm.
get things, going. Typically, we wouldn't be this far out. We would start, May and June. But with all of the supply chain issues and, just everything that's going on in the world, we need to think a little more ahead of time so that we're mitigating any risk that can come to us.
Right.
So I would say each area is different. If you're in an apparel area and you have a cold weather or you have gifting, you're normally ahead. And even in off price, there's a portion of the business that's considered closeout, and there's a portion of the business that's an upfront, meaning we produce the goods for our liking, we fill containers, and we bring it over on our own. So each business is different. It all depends on what the needs of that particular business are.
Oh, okay. So now let's talk. We've talked about the career. Um, what are some of the benefits and rewards? And then let's talk money. What are some of the benefits? What do you enjoy about your role in the buying lane?
So everything.
Well, this is
um,
good.
yes, and that's a very important thing is that you have to have passion because it's not all rosy. There are many a nights that I'm up
Mm.
having to get things done, meeting deadlines. But it's I like that it's fast paced, it's ever changing. The fact that no day is the same, like I never get bored. I'm not at a desk all day. So, yes, on a Monday, I'm recapping, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm out in the market. And when I say the market, what we consider the New York market is the garment district. So within a span of like from I would say 25th Street up to, some people like up in the 50s, but like from 7th to 8th Avenue is like the garment district. And that's where most people house themselves. So I'm constantly walking around into showrooms, going to trade shows, competitive shopping. I always have to know what my competitors are doing, whether it's my fellow off price people or my department stores and specialty market, because the specialty market dictates fashion and
Mm.
the department stores let me know from looking at what they're carrying on their floor. I can tell what they're not doing well with, what they are doing well with. I can tell that all by observing a markdown rack, right? So when I see that they're having trouble in a particular category, I could then say, okay, you need to start to prompt your vendors to ask them, do they have any goods that are sitting overseas that may have been canceled? Like I'm always looking for opportunity to help. And that's how you kind of spin it to them. I'm here to help you, right? You're selling it to me probably at cost and sometimes below cost because you need to get rid of it, right? You holding on to inventory in the world of accounting, the vendor never wants to hold on to inventory. That doesn't make them any money. So there's always a time and a season for them to release their goods. And that's when we come in. So it's always changing. And I think that's one of the things that makes it really exciting. Another thing, I mean, for a young person, coming out of school, no children or attachments, travel abilities. I mean, you have the ability to travel all over the world depending on who you're working for. So that's always exciting. Going to trade shows is always an opportunity to see things. So I think all of those things like really just drive my passion and make me really happy that this was the career that I chose.
Hmm. Do you excuse me, any foreign languages? Is there
I don't. But if you could, I will say absolutely. I think that any foreign language you could pick up because retail it's global, like I said. So I know specifically for my company, there's always opportunity for us to leave the US, go live in Europe, go live in Australia, wherever we have a base, we can move around. So and keep our jobs. So that's always, a plus is that there's opportunity to like move around and so always a language I would say is beneficial.
Yeah. Now, I always ask this question. I always try to preface it with this. People know who were here last year, who's new, welcome. I do not ask people what they make, but I do ask about a range because I know you want to know.
Absolutely.
When we're talking about buying, starting out increasingly over the years, what are the ranges, realistic ranges and I think this is, yeah, that people can expect with compensation as a buyer?
Absolutely. So the one thing I will
Your
say is
area.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, you always follow your passion and the money will come. That is my famous motto. Do what you love. Okay. With that being said, starting out, because there's levels. So you most normally coming into a company would be considered an assistant buyer. From an assistant buyer, the next level would be associate, then buyer, and then senior buyer. So within those roles, I would say an entry level is probably in a range of 40 to maybe 55. And excuse me, because I haven't been an assistant in a very long time. A senior assistant, I would say, would bump you up between the ranges of like 50 to 80, possibly, right? And then in the buyer and senior buying role, between 80 upwards of 145. So really depending on where you are, what market you're in, would really dictate, like cost of living. Of course, if you're in a New York market or LA market, you would make more. If you're like in Florida, because there are some retailers in Florida, cost of living obviously would be less. And I think it's like a 30% difference or something like that.
Mhm.
On top of your base salary, you have the
This is where it goes.
opportunity, right? This is the Benny where the game is played.
Yeah.
Opportunity to get bonuses based off of your sales performance. So each buyer is normally rated on your sales, your gross margin performance. Some companies throw in there if you hit your inventory levels, because there's a relationship between inventory and sales. So some companies will penalize you if you come in over inventory and make your sales. That's not a good ratio, right? You're supposed to be on plan and make your sales. So there's some companies that will deduct points for inventory. And then there's a subjective portion, but the subjective portion is usually only 20% of your review. So the other 80% is normally a financial number, which that's when knowing how to build a good plan comes into place. Because if you can build a plan that you can achieve and beat, that is how you are then given your compensation. So you will get a percentage base of your annual salary. So if you make, let's say, 100,000 as a buyer, some companies will do an 18%, 15%, somewhere in there. Some companies go up to 22% of your salary you can make in a bonus. Okay. On top of that, there's companies that offer stock options, right? So they'll give you stock options to sign on or situations like that, there's money to be made in the field. And Carla, that's where we came up with the term the
The
best kept
best
secret.
kept secret.
Because many of us of melanated skin don't know to even like that this is a career path. We don't know that you can, achieve this. Okay. And a lot of times what happens is these become family relationships where I bring my daughter into the company. I bring my, and it becomes, we just don't know about these jobs. And I'm a graduate of HBCU. And I know that there are a few out there that have great fashion programs that will lead you into these careers. But it definitely is an area where you can do well for yourself. Absolutely.
What are some of those checks looking like? I mean, just to put a figure, with all of those stackings. I mean, if you're making 100, then you get another 15, 18. Look, you might make 152, look, $200,000 a year as a
You
buyer.
can. You can. You can make more than a surgeon as a buyer.
See, that's what she said is the best kept secret.
It is. You absolutely can. Because, some surgeons out there make 150, you can make more, you can do better than that. And then there's positions outside of buying, there's a whole career path above that in management, so you can become a merchandise manager, a divisional merchandise manager, a vice president of, an area. So those are all steps even above that.
Wow.
And there are some great corporations out there to seek, just do your research. People are always looking.
So
I feel like right now it's a good retail environment because COVID has made so much movement where some people want to stay home and they are, change of life, they're moving. So I feel like there are jobs out there now. When I started, it was post 9/11, and it was very difficult to even find, people were getting laid off. It was so difficult to find a job. So I feel like this is a better market where you can get your foot in the door.
So let's talk about that. What are some of the skills? What are some of the soft skills that a person needs? Soft skills, technical, leadership. What are some of those skills? Let's take an exploration through some of the skills that a person wanting to be a buyer would need to have.
So you need basic math skills. You need to be able to do the basic calculations of figuring out you're open to buy. You need to have passion for just retail in general. I feel like you need to definitely be a people person and like to engage with others. You have to want to talk and get to know people, because that's a big piece of it is relationship building. You could have a buyer A and buyer B, and buyer A is liked and buyer B isn't, and buyer A is going to get what they want. So, relationship building is very important. As far as technical skills, definitely you need to know how to use Excel. Excel is very important and can save your life, as far as some companies don't have systems or aren't up to date with systems, and a lot of stuff is manual. So you'll get a lot of data dumps of information sometimes, and you need to sort through it and be able to put it into a fashion that you can analyze it. So being able to utilize Excel can make a project go from taking you 3 hours to taking you an hour to do. You need to know how to be able to manipulate data very well. And I will say sometimes it's very strange that sometimes it's the companies that you would think have good systems that don't have good systems. So actually, when you're interviewing, it's a great question to ask of what the systems are like, because that dictates to you how hard or easy is it going to be for me to grasp this information, because you can't do anything without knowledge. You can't identify who your customer is, what their likes and dislikes are without the reporting. So Excel is very, very important. I know my years as a buyer where like buyer in management, where I was managing a team, that was always a thing. If you didn't know how to use Excel, I basically wouldn't hire you. So that's definitely something that you have to have in your toolkit.
So let me ask you this. When you're talking about a project going from 3 hours to 1 hour, what type project can you say you're working on in the Excel? Yeah.
So a lot of your vendor base sends their inventory in Excel. So like as I mentioned earlier, I have a gifting area. My average ticket is, maybe $14 or $15. So you can imagine the amount, if you're running a $20 million business, the amount of SKUs you're writing, right? You're touching a lot of spreadsheets from your vendors. So one spreadsheet could have 18,000 units on it, right? You don't want the full 18,000. You have to be able to manipulate that, and be able to assort it. Then you have to code it. You have to make sure that it's ready to be entered into your specific system. So a lot of data all the time. It could be internal data of just selling information, or it can be the inventory that you're receiving from your vendor. The vendors don't always have the best systems. So, and they all have a different method of getting you information. So some people will send you stuff in Excel. I have had other vendors that will send me pictures of things. I have to print out all the pictures, figure out my quantities, write my quantities, and then I have to transfer it to Excel. So there's all different types of situations you can be in. For instance, I remember a time I bought urban streetwear for a very long time for a company, and I used to do Hustle Gang. And we would go down to Virginia to the warehouse. And this is the part of the job where it's like not desirable and you don't realize you're going to be doing these things. And we would literally walk through the whole warehouse, pulling out style by style what we wanted. And then after I pulled out the style, I would have my laptop and I would write all the SKU information, the quantity, and I literally walked their whole factory, like their whole distribution center where they would distribute their goods, to find the deals and then have to manipulate the data on spot, right? These would be like 3 or 4 day trips that we would take, but like day one would be pulling out all of the items off the floor. And day two might be getting it all onto Excel and then proposing an offer to that vendor. So now you got to tell the vendor at the table how many units you're taking, what costs you're going to offer them on each unit, and then it's a whole back and forth negotiation process. So knowing how to manipulate data quickly is very important so that you're not flustered and you're able to conduct yourself without worrying about the information piece of it, because you're multitasking in these meetings. You're expected to run the meeting, take the information, do the ordering, and you might have management with you observing. So, it becomes it can be very high stress at certain times. There's different times of year where there's highs and lows of stress, but all important things.
And talk about the times, you mentioned that earlier. So like right now, you're working on, like you said, Q4. So for anybody who doesn't know, that's Q4 for December, on those last 2 months of the year, that October, November, December. How can somebody, and definitely I heard the negotiation skills, the planning skills, I took you off. I heard you say something. I just wanted to ask about that. So I kind of took you off, but definitely the multitasking, the organizational skills. How can somebody test themselves to see what level of proficiency they have in these skills, and then what tips do you offer them for developing these skills?
I think that getting a grasp of your organizational skills, school is a good place to practice that, right? How are you as a student? Are you able to keep your notebook in order? Do you get to class on time? Like, those are all ways to start to groom yourself professionally. And I know, especially like for seniors and students that are exiting, like, and it's becoming real to you. Um, these are all things that as you're in the classroom interacting with your professors, you can begin to practice these things. So I think organization, I feel as if a lot of your schooling, that's what the schooling is doing. It's more, it's grooming you to be able to conduct yourself and be able to keep track of things. So that's one thing. Um,
And throw in there for the career changers too, because we do have some people in the
mhm.
audience who are career changers, or maybe
Okay.
we have a range of 18 to 44. So we may have some people who are career changing or just, just trying to get in the industry. So I
hmm
just want to mention that as well. But definitely what you said about the notebook.
Yeah. So for people that are changing careers, you know, at places like Staples and Office Depot, they offer classes in
Really?
different. Yes, they do. Because I
Wow.
one of the companies I worked for years ago used to send us to Excel classes, and it was through Office Depot or Staples. I'm not sure if they still do it, but there's definitely places out there. Your local library you can utilize as a resource to help you with your changes in career. LinkedIn is a great source to go to seminars, get certificates, all of these different things. A lot of times when you're switching careers and you've done something else, don't always write off those skills. All skills are transferable. I was actually in a place a few years ago where I stepped out of retail and went into hospital procurement. It was a completely different field and a different method of buying that I didn't even know existed. So that's another thing. There's different industries in which buying and procurement could come into play. So with that being said, there's always skills that, if you've worked a job or in a field for 15 years, there has to be something that you can pull out of that to relay that skill to this new field that you're trying to get into. It's definitely possible. There are also search engines out there for people that are switching careers where you can take keywords from job posts and put the keyword into the posting, and it will spit out words that you should then put into your resume. That's a great tool if you're shifting because you may not be using the right terminology. You may be doing a function and not be using the right terminology for this new field. So search engines like that are always helpful. But I see a lot of people come into the industry from being teachers, from being in finance, from being, from working on the retail end, like in the stores. So all things are possible.
That's really good advice on that resume piece. Thank you. Are there any books or do-it-yourself courses you recommend that they should take or read?
Um, Not that I know of. I mean, there are a lot of analysis that people use, like personality analysis, that sometimes are helpful because people will just kind of relate to them as they're speaking of themselves or trying to like relay what they feel their personality is. Um, so, personality tests, things of that nature. Um, as of self-help books, there was one book that I read years ago, Who Stole My Cheese?
Yeah.
Which I found was a good one. So, you know.
It's good. Thank you. I want to, you mentioned a personality test. We don't, this organization, we don't have a personality test per se, but we definitely have a gift assessment. It's free.
Mhm.
If you visit the page, blackfashioncareerday.org, the main event webpage, scroll down to the middle, center, and there is a link there where you can take a self-assessment to assess your gifts and your talents. I encourage everybody to do that. I've done it twice. It's dead on. It will give you very good recommendations on the talents that you have. Abilities is something you can develop, but those innate abilities, that we often overlook because they're there at birth. Uh, we overlook them because they're just that. So I encourage everybody, that is one service that we're offering. Again, it is free. Um, it is give you a very good report. So let's talk about, uh, moving into the role, trying to get that opportunity. What are some of the things that you recommend people not do to pursue a career and that they should
Mhm.
do? Let's be, look, we've been transparent. Let's be transparent. Because oftentimes we do things and we don't realize we're doing them. And when you know better, you do better.
This
And
is true.
when they're pointed out in a group setting like this, is not a way to judge you, it's a way to educate you. That's the whole
Mhm.
the whole missions of this. But if we don't tell the truth, we're doing you a disservice. So
It's
what
true.
should they not do? And what should they do to consider pursuing a career?
So, what they should do is carry themselves always with a certain level of professionalism. I think that is extremely important. Sometimes we lose that, especially with the world becoming more lax. Sometimes we forget that there's a time and a place. So I think that is number one. Keep your work etiquette. It may be old fashioned, but it does go a long way when others are observing you. When you're in these atmospheres, you're always being watched. It could, I mean, from the elevator to, elevator talk is very important. How you conduct, you never know who's watching. So I think that is one thing that is super, super important. Um, I'm trying to think of a
Online too. Let me just throw that in there.
on.
They're, wa- they're watching you online.
Oh
I-
yes, that is yes. The social media pages, that is another big one. And if you have your social media where it's not locked, I would just make sure that your photographs are wholesome. And if it is a page that is locked and protected, that your profile isn't anything, strange, because that's a very good point. I have had managers that will interview someone and then go look and say, oh, you could kind of tell a person's personality. So that is something to be very mindful of as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone were approaching you about a career in buying and they were saying, Renee, I'm interested in a career, what are some of the things that they could do that would make you say, this is probably not, you know, a career for you, or would just totally make you say, no, no.
So I've had assistants that are very timid. Um, there's some people, like by nature, there's some people that could come out of the timid and shyness. And then there's some people that naturally don't really like to interface with others. So I would have to say, again, you have to like people, because you're going to be around a lot of people and you're going to be dealing with a lot of different personalities. So that is like a very, very important aspect, is to be able to like gauge another person, meet them where they are, make them feel comfortable, be likable. It's a huge, huge aspect.
Yeah.
It sounds small, but
Yeah.
very important.
If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, because I know there's a delay. But go ahead, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. So as we're wrapping up, I can present those to Renee. Renee, with that in mind, um, a breakthrough moment in your career, is there a moment that you feel that you had a breakthrough and you began to soar to another level?
I actually feel like I'm at that point right now.
Oh,
I do. I finally feel that I'm in a great place, and a place where there will be growth for me. Um, my breakthrough moment, I feel like, was leaving retail and seeing another side of buying that lacked creativity and didn't allow me to think outside the box. Like I mentioned, one of the things that I like is that you are in full control of your business and you can do what you want to do. You don't have to ask 10 people to sign off on a purchase order, or give you their input on how to run your business. You have the capabilities of just, doing it on your own. Um, so that is like, that's one of the things that is, it's nice to have, to be able to express yourself that way. So that was like a breakthrough for me, because leaving it, I realized that this career is part of my personality. It's a piece of me at this point. So, um, and I missed it. I missed, going to dinners, and I missed, going to trade shows and interacting with other business minded people. And, a lot of my friends have come out of the industry and things like that. So coming back and finding myself in a space where, I feel respected, and like my thoughts and ideas are accepted is amazing for me. And so I feel like this is my breakthrough moment.
Oh my. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What, after this career talk, what steps do you believe someone who believes that they are called to a career as a buyer, what are some of the steps they should take to go ahead and start pursuing that career?
So it would be depending on if you're starting out like from student level, or if it's a career change. I think it would be a little different. But if you're starting out as a student, definitely make sure that your resume is up to par, that your resume is being, that it's able to be scanned by bots. I know we all like to have resumes that are pretty, but sometimes they're not friendly to go through these machines that the human resource people are using. So a strong resume, good credentials, maybe a background in merchandising or finance, something math oriented. Make sure that you have you have mentors, people that you can lean on for information, professors, use your professors to lean on. If you're someone that's making a career change, same thing, strong resume, like I said before, pulling out those skills that you feel are transferable, that you can relate to the industry. Finding a mentor, again, super important, someone that can guide you as far as companies to sort out, and, different avenues that you could possibly take, because there's so many different careers to get into. I think those are some of the things that you should prepare yourself with if you're getting ready to hit the ground running.
I do have a few questions here. I think that one was more of a comment, I think. This question is, why do stores bring in products so early, like when the Christmas season comes in way before Thanksgiving, etc.?
I'm laughing because I'm guilty of that right now. Most of the time, it's a strategy. So Q4 really is high. It's high time of year for every retailer. It is probably one of the largest growth opportunities you have. So everyone wants to get an early start. And as you see people like Walmart starting things, like they're putting out Christmas in September, sometimes July even. It's all strategically to get early sales. So they can put on a lot more sales and have, if they have things on the floor, longer. Whereas previously the mindset was more of, let's front load these stores, end of November, and, ready for Black Friday, and then pump it all in. You'll speed it, you'll turn it, you'll sell it. But then if you have all of those other selling weeks, you just gave yourself more opportunity to make a plan. Also, most retailers operate on comp sales. So your comp sales is year to year selling, and you're most of the time expected to be better than you were last year, right? So if you started selling in July, you now have to comp that dollar, right? So you either have to increase it to comp it, or find items that can, maybe be a higher ticket to comp it, but there's all tips and tricks to do it. But with that being said, you'll see a higher penetration the next season because that buyer needed to protect that selling period, if that makes sense.
So when you say comp, are you meaning comparable to what you did in the last year?
Exact, your comparable selling, yes.
You got to,
Because remember, you're going into the season with a sales plan and you want to beat that plan because your review and your compensation at the end of the year is based off of how much you can beat that plan. So if you're up 5%, you might get maybe a 10% bonus. But if you're up 20% to your competitive sale, you might get 15 or 20. So it's all the buyer's motivation because at the end of the day, they're being compensated off of this plan.
And you are.
So anytime you have more time to sell, my stuff is coming in October.
I know that's right. Renee, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for this information.
Thank you.
In the last minute, 60 seconds, food for thought. What are your final thoughts for everyone?
Final thoughts would be, do your research. There's tons of opportunities, not just in buying, but you have a whole planning aspect, you have operations, you have supply chain. Corporate retail is a huge field that goes, overlooked. And just do your research, do your personality assessments to see like where you think you would fit or what feeds you or what, because like I said in the beginning, it's all driven by your passion. You have to do what you love. And if you feel that this is something that you can be passionate about, that all, can equate to doing very well. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Renee, and everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for helping me empower others. Everybody, you should come back at 1:00. We will have Byron Lars on. We'll talk about those Black Barbie dolls that he created. So see you in a few minutes.